What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got some more NBA news to be talking about with you guys. For those of you who haven't heard about this by now, the New York Knicks are reportedly extremely interesting and close to actually signing Portland Trail Blazers wing Norman Powell. It's reported that Tom Thibodeau actually really loves Norman Powell and tried to push for a trade at the deadline. Unfortunately, nothing can happen, so the Knicks decided to leave that to free agency, and it is now being reported that New York is expected to pursue him again in free agency this offseason and potentially be the favourites to now, of course, sign him, and this is all being reported by a New York Post. Now, I think this is really interesting. I spoke about this in a video before. I think Norman Powell would be a real weird one for the Knicks. Now, look, I don't know necessarily how I feel. I think before I was kind of on the edge, but now I'm like, well, I actually really like this decision because now that I've kind of looked at their team, there is reports that Bullock is going to be getting about $11 million offers from other teams, which is absurd to me considering this guy was just on, like, the veterans minimum. So it's insane to me how much this dude's, price has increased, and those like 3-and-D shooters have really come to be like a big thing that a lot of teams are really wanting. So Reggie Bullock to a different team could really be possible, which means they'll be left without a starting wing. I think Barrett, if they were to get Norman Powell, RJ Barrett would probably move to that more traditional, maybe small forward position that he played, a lot in college with. He is 6'5", 198 centimeters. I still think he'd be able to guard it and be able to do it pretty easily. It's not like his wingspan's short or anything like that. I think he'd actually have a fun time maybe transitioning over to that small forward. Of course, he and Reggie Bullock, kind of swapped on small forward this year. Both are 6'5". They both kind of rotated. One would play shooting guard one game, one would guard small forward, and then they'd swap. It'd kind of just be like who they are, of course, guarding. But I think if you lose Bullock, you kind of move more into the way where now RJ Barrett will probably start for you at that small forward, position full time. And of course, I think you can bring Norman Powell in. Now, it's reported that Powell will be getting offers up to about $20 million from multiple teams. It's also reported that whether or not Portland decide to blow it up, they probably will still try and keep Norman Powell. Probably won't re-sign. It's rumored that the Pelicans are going to offer him a huge contract. And again, now the Knicks are as well. I think the Knicks will probably offer like an $18 million per season type of deal. But I think they'll only offer that once they know they've signed their 2 stars or whatever, whoever they're going out to get. Of course, we know they're really interested in DeMar DeRozan. They have been for a while. And it's reported DeMar really does want to come back to the East. So I genuinely believe that DeMar DeRozan might be going to the New York Knicks. I think that is almost set in stone at this point. So, hey, if he comes to the Knicks, he'll probably play the small forward position, which means if they get Powell, I suppose Powell will probably come off the bench, unless they want to do a really weird thing where they say, hey, we aren't able to get a point guard in free agency. Why don't we just start DeMar at point guard and see how that goes? Of course, some of you might be like, how will that work? DeMar's not a point guard. For those who didn't know, if you didn't watch San Antonio basketball games this year, DeMar DeRozan actually played a lot of point forward. I mean, he played a lot there. For example, this season, he averaged 7 assists per game. So I'm not saying he'd probably be the point guard of the New York Knicks. I'm just saying that if they were to get maybe Powell in, maybe he'd start there. And then, of course, after like 6 minutes, they'd rotate, and then DeRozan would probably go back to that wing position, or maybe the small ball power forward like what he did at the Spurs, a little bit as well. And then, of course, Derrick Rose or quickly will take over from the point guard duties. Who knows? That's an idea. I'm not saying it will happen, but hey, if you need to start all of them in the lineup, I don't see why you couldn't. I think that'd actually be pretty cool. And then, of course, Karl-Anthony Towns, they're rumored in trying to trade. They're going to try and trade Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson, and a bunch of firsts to try and get him to the team. Even though it didn't really work with Tom Thibodeau in the first, time, I still would really like to see something like that maybe happen. But I guess that's just all, my thoughts and opinions on that. But hey, if they get Norman Powell, it will be once those 2 players or 2 stars or whoever they're going to go out and get potentially come to the team. So I'd very much like to see this happen. I think, of course, Norman Powell would probably start that shooting guard position. No matter what, RJ Barrett would be moved to the small forward. I doubt they'd pay Powell $18 million to come off the bench. I just can't see that happening. Of course, he will be really good for this team though, if they do decide to bring him in. Again, 19 points per game, practically it is 18.6, 1.9 assists, 3.1 rebounds. Really, really good stats, and of course 41% from 3. The guy is an absolute deadeye from the 3-point line. So, hey, I think this would actually be a really, really cool thing to maybe see the New York Knicks do. But let's just say they're able to get DeMar and Karl-Anthony Towns as well to the team. You know, we'll just use those two as an example. Do you guys think, would the Knicks really go out and get a point guard, or would they just say, hey, let's just start DeMar at point guard and, you know, let him have the first 7 minutes as being like the ball handler, and then maybe, of course, when Derrick Rose or quickly comes off the bench, then they can start at that, of course, point guard, you know, position once, or, you know, move off the bench as the point guard position. Would you guys like to see that? Like, would a DeRozan, Barrett, Randall, and Powell 4 work together, or would it not? I'm really, really interested to see. The thing about Norman Powell is, too, he's a great defender as well. Like, I mean, he's 6'4", guarding the small forward position on the Trailblazers, which is not an easy thing to do. I still think he needs to be more of like a 2 on an NBA team. But hey, it will be really interesting to see how that goes underway. Again, as a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, we are really in the market, you know, to look for a dude like Norman Powell to start at that shooting guard position, give us some more shooting and perimeter defense, while of course then Colin Sexton come off the bench and be that more traditional 6-man. I think that would be really, really cool as a, you know, Cavs fan. But hey, who's he going to go to, the Knicks or the Cavs? Let's be honest here, he's probably going to go to the Knicks if that was to happen. I still think, though, the Knicks would be a pretty cool landing spot for Norman Powell to go. But of course, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the latest NBA content and NBA news. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/long channels if you haven't already, which I'll link in the description down below. And don't forget to check out my podcast as well if you haven't already, which I will also link in the description down below. But as I was thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.